At first I wasn't sure whether to cover this next story, because at first glance it seems like a simple throwaway story with little to no importance, but then I remembered that this actually does play a major part in the story much further down the line. So it's probably a good idea to cover it, that way when I eventually get to the later issues, that future story will have some better context to it. This comic, however, starts in the ancient ruins of a long-gone civilization, a place which is now simply known as the Aquatic Ruin Zone. It would seem that recently there's been a number of disturbances around the zone. Quakes frequently rattle the area. Because of this, every now and then ancient artifacts and ruins are brought to the surface. The latest quake causes a huge statue to rise from the depths of the lake. The appearance of this statue seems to be that of a human-looking creature, a warrior clutching a spear which watches over the area. This latest revelation gets some attention, as later in the Freedom Fighter's secret base, we see that the Kintobor computer has managed to hack into one of Robotnik's spy satellites, which seems to have collected some images of the aquatic ruins. However, they are unsure of what the images actually show. It piques Sonic's interest enough to make him want to check it out, so he immediately tries to rally the team. But unfortunately, no one else is around. The others are either on their own missions or taking care of their own personal business. Since no one else is there to assist him, he decides he doesn't need anyone else for this mission, and dashes through the base's star post which warps him as close as possible to his destination. He arrives in the middle of the lake, with the Sentinel statue only a short distance away. Sonic gets a good look at it, impressed by how enormous it looks even from afar. Of course though, it doesn't take long before Robotnik's badniks locate Sonic and try to catch him off guard. It doesn't work however, as Sonic swiftly dodges the attack and retaliates with a spin attack, easily smashing through the badniks one by one. The badniks keep coming, and eventually Sonic's luck runs out as one of them manages to strike a direct hit on the Hedgehog. Sonic survives, but the badnik swoops in for a second attack. But thanks to Sonic's super speed, he's able to launch a rock at the robot fast enough to destroy it, and free the animal powering it. Just as things seem to have settled down, a noise catches Sonic's attention. When he turns around, he sees one of the zone's traps ready to fire arrows at him. The hail of arrows dashes towards Sonic, but he is more than fast enough to dodge them. Not a single one hits him, but they do manage to drive him backwards until he accidentally slips over the edge of the small island and sinks into the lake. On his way to the bottom, he manages to get a good look at the ruins of the sunken city, and briefly wonders what happened to the people who built it. Before his thoughts can wander towards an escape plan, he looks up and sees more debris falling towards him. He has no time to get out of their way, and soon Sonic is half buried and trapped under the fallen columns. But then, as the Sentinel statue senses danger in the city, it starts to move. It steps off its platform and makes its way towards Sonic, who believes it's actually another one of Robotnik's badniks getting ready to deal the final blow. It reaches down and pulls away the columns, then grabs Sonic and lifts him back above the surface. When the two are face to face, Sonic asks what the next move is. Will the Sentinel kill Sonic now, or take him to Robotnik? The Sentinel is confused by this. He loosens his grip on Sonic, allowing some freedom to move. It seems he has no idea who Robotnik is. When Sonic asks for some explanation about who he is, the Sentinel says he was built by a group of people that he calls the Ancient Ones. His mission was to guard the city, but as the city began to sink beneath the water, these Ancient Ones decided to leave the planet. He, unfortunately, was caught in a tremor at that time and left behind. So there he stood, dormant in the lake for over 2,000 years. But now he is free, and he sees that the city and its people are no more. And because of this, his mission is complete. Rather than return to a dormant state, he starts to self-destruct, crumbling away as Sonic pleads with him to stop and join the fight against Robotnik. But it's too late. The Sentinel falls apart, and his remains sink back to the bottom of the lake. Soon the story really gets started, as we're introduced to another main character from the Sonic universe, the guardian of the Chaos Emeralds himself, Knuckles the Echidna. Down in the Freedom Fighter's secret base, Amy is watching an intriguing news broadcast. It would seem that their mortal enemy, Robotnik, has gone missing after his Death Egg satellite fell from orbit. What's more is that even Robotnik's own rescue teams have been unable to find the crash site. It's like he simply vanished from the face of the Earth. The Kintobor computer has been pouring through as much information as he was able to find, in an effort to find Robotnik and determine his fate. From everything he was able to gather, he deduced that Robotnik's Death Egg satellite crashed into something before it reached the ground. Johnny immediately thinks that it must be the fabled floating island, but Amy finds that hard to believe as the floating island is said to be nothing more than a legend. But even so, Kintobor sends out Sonic and Tails to investigate around the last known location of the satellite. They take the plane and begin their search. After some time, even though they find it hard to believe, they come across the last thing they expected to see, the floating island. The legends are real, the island exists and is floating right there in front of them. Tails sends a message back to the base to inform the rest of the team about what they've discovered, then come in for a landing. Once on the ground they begin their search, but Sonic still has his doubts about finding Robotnik there. Tails spots a type of totem pole nearby featuring a strange looking face, and talks about how he doesn't like the look of it. Sonic responds by acting like a complete jerk, saying that he doesn't like the look of Tails' face either, but he isn't complaining. That's when the totem pole begins spitting out arrows towards Sonic, who barely manages to dodge it. It fires even more out towards our hero, but with his super speed he destroys the machine with ease. After barreling through it, he lands on a steep slope and can't stop himself from slipping down it. At the other end is a one-way trip over the edge of the island, and before he knows it, Sonic is plummeting towards the land below. He calls out for Tails, who swoops in and grabs him before he can fall too far. However, the flying fox doesn't have the energy to lift them back up to the top of the island. Instead, they head towards one of the open pipes which litter the underside of it. Once inside, they find themselves trapped in a small room. They hope it contains a path back to the surface, but unfortunately they can't find anything of the sort. Instead, Sonic decides to create his own path. He charges towards one of the walls and dashes through it, ending up back on the top of the island. A clue to Robotnik's whereabouts zooms past in the form of a strange looking badnik. Sonic comments on how stupid this new type of robot looks and attempts to smash it to pieces, but it seems this badnik is more dangerous than it looks, as spikes thrust out from every side of its body. Sonic uses a strange new ability to protect himself and avoids taking any damage. He falls safely back to the ground. Sonic informs Tails that it's his new force field, but there's no time to explain that to him right now. If there are badniks roaming around the area, then Robotnik can't be too far away. They search the immediate area and find Robotnik half hidden behind a set of pillars. Sonic wastes no time in trying to capture the dictator. With no one else here to protect him, Sonic dashes forward, but is quickly greeted with a powerful punch to the face from some unknown person. A new character steps in, the guardian of the floating island and now Robotnik's personal bodyguard, Knuckles the Echidna. Robotnik accusingly yells at Sonic that he'll never get his hands on the island's Chaos Emeralds. But Sonic looks on confused. He says he doesn't need to steal any Chaos Emeralds because he already has some of his own. Robotnik continues to spin his web of lies to Knuckles, saying that Sonic has basically admitted to stealing his emeralds and the Hedgehog has now come for the ones on the island. He continues to try and convince Knuckles that he is a good guy and the people of Mobius all live in fear of Sonic's evil rule. The lies begin to enrage Knuckles. He'll never let Sonic get his hands on the island's emeralds, and attacks once again, punching Sonic square in the face. As Sonic tries to get up, he realises what's going on. That Robotnik is using Knuckles as a pawn, warping his mind with lie after lie. But Sonic isn't going to let anyone get away with hitting him like that. He gets back up and charges towards Knuckles, hitting him back while at the same time telling Tails to get away and do something. The fight continues on, with Knuckles slamming his fist into the ground, causing a minor quake which knocks Sonic back. The two take their battle underground. The force of their attack shakes the whole area and destroys the nearby ancient columns, while Robotnik looks on at the chaos. But eventually Knuckles comes flying back up out of the ground. The two continue to argue, but Tails soon returns in the plane. He starts diving straight towards Robotnik, who tries to run away. He doesn't manage to get far before Tails fires out a net which surrounds and captures him. With no way to break the strong ropes, he gets forcefully lifted away, all the while calling for Knuckles to rescue him. Knuckles thinks he can grab Sonic and hold him hostage to force Tails into returning the Doctor, but of course he's no match for Sonic's speed as he runs out of reach. With their mission now complete, Sonic hops back on the plane. He, Tails and Robotnik all fly away from the island, but now the freedom fighters have to figure out just what they're going to do with the evil dictator now they've captured him. As they fly away, Tails asks Sonic whether he thinks he could have defeated Knuckles. Of course, Sonic says it would have been a piece of cake to him, but secretly Sonic thinks to himself that he isn't so sure. The battle was tougher than he thought, and that this probably isn't the last he's going to see of Knuckles. Sometime later in the Freedom Fighters' secret base, everyone is standing around discussing who gets to interrogate Robotnik next. The unfortunate person next up for the job is Porker. He makes his way down to the base's prison area, trembling all the while and hoping that Robotnik will simply refuse to talk. When he reaches the prison, Porker greets their new captive, who immediately lashes out, saying that he had a pleasant dream about what he is going to do to Porker when he eventually breaks free. Porker nervously tries to ask a few questions about the badniks roaming the planet, hoping the dictator will give up some kind of weakness. Robotnik simply laughs and taunts Porker about how he has a badnik perfectly sized to contain a pig. But then, they're both interrupted by a loud rumbling sound. The area around them both begins to shake, and moments later Knuckles bursts up through the ground, ready to rescue his captured friend. Porker calls for help and tries to run away, but he barely has a chance to move before Robotnik reaches his arm through the bars of the cell and grabs him, holding him in a tight headlock. Sonic comes rushing in to see what all the fuss is about, only to see his friend being held captive. Robotnik glares out at the Hedgehog and the other freedom fighters, then demands that they bring him the Chaos Emeralds, otherwise Porker will meet an untimely end. Porker tries to convince Sonic not to do it, but he can't let the emeralds fall into Robotnik's evil hands. But Sonic doesn't listen, he can't sacrifice his friends, and so he orders Johnny to go and fetch the emeralds. He returns carrying a refrigerated case. When Sonic opens it and shows the emeralds to Robotnik, he tries to explain that the emeralds need to be kept cool, otherwise they'll become unstable. But before he can finish explaining, Robotnik demands that they hand the emeralds over. He also uses this opportunity to try and solidify his alliance with Knuckles further, by saying that this is proof that they had stolen the emeralds, and that as soon as he has them, they can be returned to their rightful place. There's still one important question however. Sonic asks how Knuckles was able to find their base. It turns out that Robotnik implanted a small device into Knuckles, which allows him to track his whereabouts using a homing device hidden in his tooth. Robotnik demands the emeralds once again, and Sonic hands them over, sliding it through into the cell. With the emeralds now safely in his hands, Robotnik and Knuckles make their escape back through the tunnel where Knuckles entered and seal it up behind them. Sonic dashes back into the base's main room to ask the Kintobor computer for help, but it seems he's already one step ahead and has located the escapees who are currently boarding a small escape vehicle. The only hope now is for Sonic and Tails to chase after them in the plane. Aboard the escape pod, Robotnik revels in his victory, ecstatic that he finally got his hands on all of the emeralds. He tells Knuckles that the emeralds will be returned to the floating island where they belong, where they will be safe from anyone else getting their hands on them. It's then that Knuckles notices that they have company. Outside the window he can see Sonic and Tails approaching at full speed. Our heroes get closer and closer, knowing they may not get a second chance. When they're close enough, Sonic jumps up and dashes towards the pod, hitting it with enough force to damage it and send it hurtling back down towards the ground, though it doesn't make it all the way as it crashes back down atop the floating island. Sonic and Tails touch down immediately afterwards and cautiously approach the damaged pod to investigate. But suddenly, the pod smashes open, and out from it comes Knuckles, ready to settle the score against Sonic in round 2. Sonic tries to explain once again that Robotnik is the true enemy, but Knuckles will hear none of it. He swings a powerful punch towards Sonic, but it gets blocked by the Hedgehog's new force field. Now we finally get an explanation as to how he performs this move. He has learned to vibrate the air molecules in front of him at supersonic speeds, in such a way that it causes any attack to feel like they're hitting a solid wall. The fight continues, with Sonic showing Knuckles an old favourite, his super spin attack which knocks the echidna to the ground. But Knuckles gets back up and has yet more surprises up his sleeve. Having lived on the island all his life, he has learned most of its secrets. He stomps on a nearby button on the ground which causes the area to rumble, and a pair of huge stone hands burst through the ground. Tails manages to escape, but Sonic isn't so lucky, as one of the hands grabs him and holds him in a tight grip. Off in the distance, Knuckles and Robotnik are making their escape. They find and use something called a zoom tube, which should take them wherever they need to go. And with that, they're gone, leaving Sonic struggling for his life. Tails flies in and tries to help his friend, but it's no good, the stone is just too strong to fight against. It looks like all is lost, but then Sonic laughs and tells a surprised Tails that he was only joking this whole time. That a trap like this could never hope to defeat him, and with that Sonic spins as fast as he can, easily breaking through the rocky grip. It turns out that Sonic was only pretending to be trapped this whole time so that Robotnik would lower his guard and they can find out what he's really up to. Our heroes head over to the zoom tube and jump inside, ready to follow Robotnik wherever he has gone. We next find that he has headed to the heart of the island, to the Temple of Chaos, where a second set of Chaos Emeralds float inside a huge pillar of light. Now we find out why there's more than one set of emeralds. Knuckles explains that according to legends, there were once only 6 emeralds, but at some point in history something happened that managed to split them in half. It's not much of an explanation and something which I don't recall ever being elaborated on, but at least it's something which kind of fits with the mystery of the island. After all, not much is known about its history and its people. Even Knuckles doesn't know what happened in the island's past, and he's lived there his whole life. There is one more secret though which Knuckles does know. He reveals that there is also a 7th Grey Emerald, which was also lost and has yet to be found. This Grey Emerald is also known as the Control Emerald, and is used to control the powers of the others. This doesn't matter to Robotnik however. It seems he planned for this, and takes out a device which he claims will be able to control the emeralds in the Grey one's place. With the push of a few buttons, the emeralds in the cooled box rise into the air and float towards their other halves. They glow and steadily move into place before finally joining with their counterparts. After countless generations, the emeralds are finally whole again. But now, at long last, Robotnik reveals the true nature of his plans. With the emeralds now whole again, he uses the control remote to draw the energy into himself, flooding his body with near unlimited power. With all this newfound power, Robotnik is practically a god, and unfortunately Sonic and Tails rush in just in time to witness the whole thing. Robotnik immediately shows off his new powers by shooting out a small stream of energy from his finger towards Tails, which turns the poor fox into a glass statue. Luckily, Sonic is there to catch him and save him from shattering into 100 pieces on the ground. He carefully sets Tails down, and then from across the room, Knuckles calls out to Robotnik. It turns out that he was lying about the Grey Emerald being lost, and takes it out of hiding. The Emerald's ability to control the power of the others appears to be greater than Robotnik's machine, as Knuckles turns it against his powerful foe. The Emerald hits Robotnik with a type of energy blast, and the next thing we know, he has completely vanished, leaving nothing more than a small pile of smoke where he once stood. With Robotnik gone, the effects of his power also disappear, causing Tails to return to normal. Sonic asks Knuckles what happened, curious to know if the blast killed his mortal enemy. But Knuckles says that all he did was remove the power and return it to the Chaos Emeralds, and then transport Robotnik off the island back to the planet below. Tails asks how Knuckles knew that Robotnik was lying, and he replies by saying that he didn't know at all. But he was cautious enough to be suspicious of people he doesn't know. He knew that if Robotnik got his hands on the emeralds, then the truth would come out, and he would be able to deal with any problems using the Grey Emerald as he just demonstrated. Sonic asks Knuckles if he's interested in joining the fight against Robotnik. After all, they could use someone like him in the fight to free Mobius. But, unfortunately, he declines, saying that it's not his war to fight, that his place is here on the floating island, and that he must wait for the day that his people return from the stars. Sonic and Tails accept this choice and take their leave, knowing that the emeralds will be safe in his hands. On the way out, Tails says he can't help but feel sorry for Knuckles, having to spend his whole life on the island alone, with nothing but hope that his people will one day return. But they both know that it'll be okay, and they know that this won't be the last they've seen of their new friend. Not long after everyone returns to the secret base in the Emerald Hill Zone, they are forced to all start packing up as much as they can carry. The base's computers have detected a large group of badniks heading straight towards them, led by none other than Dr. Robotnik himself. After escaping from the base, he took note of where it was located and is now hell-bent on getting his revenge. Things aren't going smoothly for the Freedom Fighters however, as Porker is having trouble transferring Kintobor onto the ring where he was originally found. It seems it's going to take some time before the transfer is complete. Back above the planet on the floating island, Knuckles has tasked himself with ridding all traces of Robotnik from his home. He walks right up to one of the troopers and instantly attacks, punching the robot into a pile of scrap. He then looks up at his next target, the Death Egg, which is being quickly repaired after it crashed on the island not long ago. A little while later, in the secret base, Porker still isn't finished with the transfer. Kintobor's program is just too huge to move quickly. There's no other choice for Sonic other than to take Johnny and buy some time. Everyone else has already evacuated and is waiting somewhere safe, so they are the only two left who can fight. The two race forward. The rumbling of Robotnik's machines becomes more violent with each passing second, and soon enough the wall in front of them begins to crack as the enemy prepares to break through. Robotnik, inside a new fighting vehicle, drills and punches his way into the base, with a small army of badniks right behind him. He wastes no time in grabbing Johnny and tries to squeeze the life out of him, but Sonic puts a stop to it with a spin attack, causing the machine's hand to lose its grip on the rabbit. Robotnik taunts the freedom fighters and says when he's done he'll be able to return to the floating island and launch his death egg, which is nearing completion. But Sonic soon shuts him up with another spin attack, this time straight to the machine's faceplate. Though he quickly retaliates by swinging the machine's giant fist directly into Sonic, knocking him across the room. The machine is too tough, but Sonic has another idea. He charges another spin attack, but instead of hitting Robotnik, he bashes into the ceiling and bounces between it and the walls. As soon as he is done, the room begins to shake, and the weakened ceiling starts to cave in on Robotnik, completely burying him, but it won't be enough. It's only a matter of time before he breaks out of the rock, though hopefully this should buy everyone enough time. Sonic and Johnny quickly run back to the main room to check on Porker's progress. When they get there, they find the transfer is complete, and Kintobor is once again back on the gold ring. Though it's not all good news, as Robotnik has sealed off their exits, leaving them with no way to escape. Off in the distance, Robotnik finally breaks free of the cave-in, but before he continues with his task of destroying the freedom fighters, he checks in with his assistant, Grimer, who is overseeing the Death Egg's repairs. Grimer tells Robotnik that Knuckles attempted to attack the base, but it didn't go so well as the Badniks caught him by surprise and killed him in a most gruesome way. With one problem out of the way, Robotnik goes back to settle his own, ending the transmission so he can finish off Sonic once and for all. But as the screen cuts off, we get to see that Grimer has been captured and tied to a chair. Knuckles forced him to tell Robotnik that he was dead, so he wouldn't expect what would happen next. In the base, the remaining freedom fighters are trying to figure out their next move. With all of the exits blocked, they have to come up with something fast. They're not fast enough though, as Robotnik once again comes smashing through the wall into the main computer room. Sonic uses another spin attack against Robotnik's machine, but ends up bouncing off its tough armour. The room once again begins to rumble, the ceiling cracks and starts to break apart, but instead of another cave-in, Knuckles comes bursting through into the room and punches the machine with enough force to shatter the strong visor. Knuckles tells Sonic to follow up with a spin attack, which he gladly does so. With the machine's armour weakened, he can easily smash through it from the inside, leaving Robotnik tumbling to the ground. The Dictator scurries behind the Badniks and orders them to attack. Though Knuckles decides that it will be a better idea to take the battle outside, he digs into the wall and creates a tunnel leading to the surface. Now with everyone out in the open, the ground begins to rumble, shaking the whole area. And of course, Robotnik's Badniks follow them, bursting through the ground right in front of them. With more freedom to move around, the battle begins once again, except now our heroes can more easily fight off the enemy. Sonic spins through them one by one, reducing them to piles of scrap. Knuckles continues punching them apart, and Johnny fights them off with his staff while Porker guards the Kintobor ring. Things escalate quickly as another squad of troopers barrels onto the scene. Though our fighters never give up, they fight off everything that Robotnik throws at them until eventually the evil Dictator makes his escape, flying away in his Eggmobile. After a while, the battle comes to an end. The freedom fighters are victorious and are left standing in the robot's remains. Sonic wonders why Knuckles helped him out. After all, he said the fight against Robotnik was none of his concern, but Knuckles says that it's his fault that Robotnik found the location of the secret base, so he basically owes them for all the trouble he's caused. But Sonic just jokes around about how he didn't need any help, and that he had everything under control by himself. Though of course Johnny seems to be getting a bit annoyed with that kind of attitude. With the fight over, Knuckles hops into the spare Eggmobile which he used to get down off the island, and uses it to return back to his home and back to his mission of ridding the island of all traces of Robotnik. The rest of the freedom fighters decide to head off and meet up with the others who had already evacuated. They travel a short distance away to where Amy and Tails are waiting, worried sick about what took them so long, but they explain that they had a little distraction thanks to Robotnik. With their base gone, they have now decided to pose as Bob Beakey's travelling circus, a group of performers that troopers and badniks will hopefully never suspect. As they travel along, they come across a checkpoint. The troopers stop them and ask if they've seen anything suspicious relating to Sonic, but they say they've seen nothing, and the troopers check out the passengers, somehow not seeing through the most obvious disguises. With the troopers satisfied, the crew continue on their way, ready to continue the fight wherever they are needed.